Welcome to Learning Tree Engineer. In today's video, we are going to see another method of resistance measurement. It is the Wheatstone's bridge. In the previous video, we saw the ammeter voltmeter method of resistance measurement and the drawbacks of that method. We have the resistance measurement bridges in order to minimize those drawbacks. We will be able to measure the resistance accurately, but each one of the bridges has some limitations specific to it. Now we are going to see the Wheatstone's bridge, and we are also going to analyze better ways of measurement of resistance. You all would have known Wheatstone's bridge earlier. You would have known how to find the unknown resistance using this bridge. You would have even done an experiment in your measurements lab and found out the unknown resistance using this bridge. Today, I am not going to tell you all the details about Wheatstone's bridge, hoping that you already know them. We are going to dig into what is the principle of this bridge and what are the drawbacks of this bridge. Let's get started. Before we know the Wheatstone's bridge of resistance measurement, we should first know the principle of operation for any kind of resistance measurement bridge. It is the substitution method. In the substitution method, you have a known resistance, also an unknown resistance, and then an ammeter. You will have a switch which toggles between the known resistance and then the unknown resistance. First, the switch will be put into the unknown resistance and the flow of current will be along this path. It will go from this adjustable resistance to this ammeter, through this unknown resistance, and it will be looping back. Then the ammeter will be showing some reading corresponding to this unknown resistance. Let us say this current is 5 ampere. 5 ampere of current is flowing when you are connecting a resistance which is not known to you. Next, you will be switching it to a known resistor for which you know the resistance of this bridge, and then you will adjust the value of this resistor. This small r will be adjusted till you get 5 ampere. Once you get 5 ampere in this configuration, you can actually calculate how much R is used and then how much is P. Say for example, 10 ohm of R is used, and then let's say P is 5 ohm. When you are connecting 15 ohm in this loop, 5 ampere is flowing, and then when you are connecting the resistance Rx, then also 5 ampere is flowing. So now you can easily find out the unknown resistance. So this is the basic idea of finding the unknown resistance by any bridge. You have different kinds of bridge. It depends on the value of the resistance you are measuring. For impedances you have separate bridges, for capacitances you have separate bridges, and when you have a resistance impedance combination, you have a separate bridge. Depending on the accuracy, you have to choose the method, and there are so many considerations on that. But all of those bridges work on this basic principle, which is same for Wheatstone's bridge. In Wheatstone's bridge, you have 4 resistance arms, in which 3 of them is the known resistance and 1 arm contains the unknown resistance. Under balanced condition, the galvanometer which is connected between these pair of nodes will show null deflection. This is the basic principle of Wheatstone's bridge. Let's quickly derive the expression for the unknown resistance. Consider that you have a battery which supplies a voltage of E, and this current is I1 and this current is I2. This current is I3 and then this current is I4. When you have null deflection, it means that the potential across these two ends is same. The potential at this end is same as the potential at this end. Only then there isn't any current that is flowing in between these two ends. Only when there is a potential difference between two nodes, current will flow through it. If there is zero potential difference between these two nodes, then no current will flow, and then the reading will be 0 ampere. So the bridge is adjusted to null balance. At null balance condition, you have to know that the current I1 will be same as the current I2, because there is no way for this current to branch out. So P and S will be in series. Similarly, this current I3 flows into the unknown resistance. Therefore, I1 will be same as I2, and then I3 will be same as I4. So what is I1? I1 is same as I2, which is equal to the potential difference across it divided by the resistance. So what is the potential difference across these two ends? It is E, because in this we have three parallel paths. One is E, one is P plus S, the other one is Q plus R. So this current will be the potential difference across these two ends divided by the total resistance. So this current will be the potential difference across these two ends divided by the resistance, which is E divided by P plus S. And similarly, this current will be E divided by Q plus R. When the bridge is balanced, the potential across these ends is same. So therefore, I1 into P will be same as I3 into Q, right? Because the potential difference across those ends will be same, and hence we can say that the potential is equal to, let me mark it as E dash, which is equal to I1 times P, which is also same as I3 times Q. We have found out that I1 is equal to E by P plus S, and then I3 is equal to E by Q plus R. Let's substitute that here. So this implies E by P plus S into P is equal to E by Q plus R into Q. So let's cancel these terms. You will be getting P divided by P plus S is equal to Q divided by Q plus R. So if you cross multiply, you will get two PQ terms and it will get cancelled. So this implies that PQ plus PR will be same as PQ plus QS. So here you have two PQ terms on either sides which can be cancelled. I am continuing to write on this side. So PR is equal to QS. So the bridge balance condition will be P by Q is equal to S by R. So this is the condition for the bridge to get balanced. This is the basic principle of Wheatstone's bridge. But you can't use this for any kind of resistance measurement. This can be used only when your resistance is greater than 1 ohm. When your resistance is lesser than 1 ohm, say for example if you want to measure the resistance of lead resistance or small contact resistance or any small amount of resistance, this method will not be useful for you. It is because of some limitations. Let's see those limitations. I'll just drop the derivation part now. You all know that current has different effects. Current has heating effects, current has magnetic effects, current has heating effects. You all know that because of these interferences from other undesirable sources, we will have some limitations in measurement of resistance. Let me explain you. First thing is due to heat. Let us see from where this heat originates. Next is due to the undesired resistances. You all know that the resistance of any conductor varies due to temperature. That is why even in Ohm's law, the voltage will be directly proportional to current as long as the temperature is equal to constant. When this temperature is not constant, the value of resistance changes. When you are going to measure a resistance of, let us say, 5 ohm, and you have the lead resistances of here or the resistances of the galvanometer to be something close to 2 ohm or 3 ohm, that resistance will interfere with the resistance of this circuit, and hence the balance condition will not be accurate. You might think that the resistance that you are deriving in this procedure is correct, but it will be a little lesser than what is actually you are finding, because you have found the resistance considering all the resistances of the meter, the contact resistance, the resistance of the internal resistance of the battery, and then the resistance of the wires. All of them come into picture. So there is a undesired resistance in this circuit. So because of all these, we get the error. Coming back to the heating effects, you all know that for copper the alpha value or the temperature conductance of heat is 0.004 per degree Celsius. So this means that for 1 degree Celsius rise in temperature, the resistance increases by 0.4%. So when you consider the heating effects of current, say you are supplying 100 volt in this circuit, when you have more voltage supplied, more will be the heating effect. So this alpha value will contribute to a significant amount of resistance, which is exclusively due to the temperature. So due to all these effects, you will get some errors in this method. So how to minimize that, and how to measure resistances that are less than 1 ohm. So for that, you have to use Kelvin's double bridge. How is this bridge working? We are going to see that in the next video. So thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and if you like this video, do give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more updates. Thank you.